Hello, students. Good to see you again with one more topic in British Literature 3, Poetry 2. The first poem is Ode to the West Wind. We all know about the very great romantic poets. One of the major romantic poet is P.B. Shelley, Percy Bysshe Shelley. His most important poem, Ode, is Ode to West Wind. Of course, we all know there are many other words. Odanagrishinan, mm, some words are really about some incidents or some things that are happened. But Ode to the West Wind is a very special one because it is about one of the major features which is mainly important to our life. We cannot live without air, that we all know. But the only thing is how a poet can describe, how a poet can easily take wind as a central topic of his poem. Okay, okay. Let us know about Percy Bysshe Shelley. Is a brilliant poet, an renowned atheist, anti-monarchical, and anti-war. Okay? He was born in 1792 and died in 1822 at the age of 29. He has died at a very young age. Type of works: Ode to the West Wind is a lyric poem that addresses the West Wind as a powerful force and asks it to scatter the poet's words throughout the world. A lyric poem presents the deep feelings and emotions of the poet rather than telling a story or presenting a witty observation. An ode is a lyric poem that uses lofty, dignified language to address a person or thing. Okay, here he addresses the West Wind, a thing, setting and background information. Okay, there must be a deep influence of background situation, the climate, weather, all those things to write a poem. Here, the background situation and setting and of the poem War to Westward is the time is autumn of 1819. The place is Western Italy from the Mediterranean coast inland to Florence. Shelley makes a specific reference in the poem to the city of Bay called Aqua Cuman by ancient Romans. Okay, city of Bay is a new reference, but its old reference is Aqua Cumen by ancient Romans. Its favorable climate attracted vacationing Roman dignitaries to the city, including Julius Caesar and Nero, who constructed villas there. Okay, there are still some villas there, which was constructed by Julius Caesar and Nero, great peoples like them. Okay. Volcanic eruptions plunked part of the ancient site into the sea as alluded in the poem lines in 32 and 33. Okay, there are some kind of volcans out there. Shelley wrote the poem inland in a forest on the Arno River near Florence. His notes on the poem explain that he received the inspiration for it one fall day when the strong west wind swept down from the Atlantic and through the Tuscan landscape of west central Italy. Okay, this is the background setting of the poem. This poem was conceived and chiefly written in a word that skirts the Arno near Florence. On a day when what tempestuous wind, whose temperature is at once mild and animating, was collecting the vapor which poured down the autumnal rains. They begin, as I foresay, at sunset, with a violent tempest of hail and rain, attended by that magnificent thunder and lightning peculiar to the Cisalpine region. Okay, that's a particular region. Okay, these are some kinds of professional and personal biography of Shelley. This poem is a highly controlled text about the role of the poet as the agent of political and moral change. The last famous lines of his defense of poetry is poets are the hierophants of an unapprehended inspiration, the mirrors of the gigantic shadows which futurity casts upon the present, the words which express what they understand, not the trumpets which sing a battle, and feel not what they inspire, the influence which is moved not, but moves. Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. They are the legislators, the lawyers of the world. Okay. Here is the first stanza, first canto of the poem. The poem is divided into five cantos. Each canto expresses the activity of west wind in each places, and at last two stanzas it describes the uh, personal touch of personal feel of a poet with the west wind. Okay, let us see the poem. O wild west wind, thou breath of atoms being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanted field. Okay, the west wind drives the dead leaves, the fallen leaves from the trees. Uh, it drives the dead leaves like ghosts, yellow and black and pale and hectic red. Pestilence-stricken multitudes, O thou who chariotest to thy dark wintry bed. These are the faded colors of the dead leaves. Some leaves are in yellow color, which is overripened, and some are in black, which is dried, and some are in pale and some are in hectic red, which is about to get black. Okay, these are driven up by the west wind like a ghost, and the west wind itself acts like an enchanter. The winged seats where they lie, cold and low, each like a corpse. Corpse means dead body, within it graves, until thine Arshia, sister of the spring, shall blow. Okay, the west wind takes the seeds which are fallen from the trees from the ground, and it buries the seeds in somewhere else. In spring season, the seeds can grow up and give a new life. Her clarion over the dreaming earth and fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air with living hues and odors, plain and hill. Wild spirit which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, here, oh here. You can see the last two summing up lines here and here, here, oh here, in every stanza of every canto of the poem. Here he refers destroyer and preserver. The west wind plays dual role in this poem. Okay, it is a destroyer and at the same time it is a preserver. When it is wild, it is a destroyer. When it buries streets from one place to another, it becomes a preserver. Okay. Summary of stanza 1. Addressing the west wind as a human, the poet describes its activities. It drives dead leaves away as if they were ghostess fleeing a whistle. The leaves are yellow and black and pale and red as if they had died of an infectious disease. Okay, so it has different colors. So it is identified as infected by various diseases. The west wind carries seeds in its chariot and deposits them in the earth where they lie until the spring wind awakens them by blowing on a trumpet that is clarion. Okay, when they form buds, the spring wind spreads them over plains and on hills. In a paradox, the poet addresses the west wind as a destroyer and a preserver, then asks it to listen to what he says. Okay. Here is Canto 2. Okay. In this canto, he compares and expresses the action of the west wind on sky. Okay, let us see the summary of it. Okay, the poet says the west wind drives clouds along just as it does dead leaves after it shakes the clouds free of the sky and the oceans. These clouds erupt with rain and lightning against the sky. The lightning appears as a bright shaft of hair from the head of a manet. Okay? The poet compares the west wind to a funeral song sung at the death of year and says the night will become a dome erected over the years, tombed with all of the wind's gathered might. From that doom will come black rain, fire, and hail. Again, the poet asks the west wind to continue to listen to what he has to say. Okay, so in the first canto, he has described the action of the west wind on earth, on land. In the second canto, he has described the uh, action of west wind on sky and the ocean. And the third one, okay, in water, how it has acted over the water. It's here, okay. In his notes, Shelley commented on lines 38 to 42, the phenomenon alluded to at the end of the third stanza is well known to naturalists. The vegetation at the bottom of the sea, of rivers, and of lakes sympathizes with that of the land in the change of seasons and is consequently influenced by the winds announces it. Okay. And in the fourth stanza, fourth canto, he wishes, the poet himself, Shelley himself, wishes about if I were a dead leaf, if I were a cloud, if I were a wave, how would I can be free like uh, the west wind? That is what the feeling of the poet, Shelley himself. Okay? The poet says that if he were a dead leaf, like the ones in the first stanza, or a cloud like the ones in the second stanza, and an ocean wave that rides the power of the Atlantic but is less free than the uncontrollable west wind, or if even he were as strong and vigorous as he was when he was a boy, and cloud accompanied the wandering wind in the heavens, and could only dream of travelling faster, well, then he would never have prayed to the west wind as he is doing now in his hour of need. Okay, referring again to imaginary, in the first three stanzas, the poet asks the wind to lift him as it would be a wave, a leaf, or a cloud For here on earth he is experiencing troubles that prick him like thorns and cause him to bleed. He is now carrying a heavy burden that, though he is proud and tameless and swift like the west wind has mobilized him in chains and bowed him down. Okay, so at last he concludes the canto, the last canto, with a positive note, the trumpet of a prophecy. That is, the sound that the west wind creates tells that if winter comes, can spring be far behind? If winter comes, spring can automatically come after that. Okay, so there is no permanent suffering, there is no permanent pain in the world. If winter is a season, then it will be followed by spring season also. Here, the poet asks the west wind to turn him into a lyre. Okay, he wants to be like a lyre, a musical instrument, in the same way that the west wind's mighty currents turn the forest into a lyre, and if the poet's leaves blow in the wind like those from the forest trees, there will be heard a deep autumnal tone that is both sweet and sad. But my spirit, the poet implores the wind, be thou me and drive my dead thoughts across the universe in order to prepare the way of new birth in the spring. Of course, in winter season, all the surroundings, all the environment in Western countries will be surrounded by snowfall. And in spring season, when the summer arrives, the snows will be vanished away and it will be turned into water, and again new sprouts, new leaves, new flowers, new lights came into being. So he is also saying that the dead thoughts, the sufferings, the pain one half in his life will be vanished away by the west wind, and again new birth in spring would come to the poet. The poet asked the wind to scatter his words around the world as if they were ashes from a burning fire. To the unawakened earth, they will become blasts from a trumpet of prophecy. In other words, the poet wants the wind to help him disseminate his views on politics, philosophy, literature, and so on. The poet is encouraged that although winter is soon arrive, spring and rebirth will follow it. That is the summary of the concluding line. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? Okay. Now, summary of the poem is here it is. We have seen stanza to stanza explanation. Now we are seeing the whole summary. Okay. The speaker invokes the west wind of autumn, which scatters the dead leaves and spreads seeds so that they may be nurtured by the spring, and asks that the wind, destroyer and preserver, hear him. The speaker calls the wind the dirge of the dying year and describes how it stirs up violent storms, and again implores it to hear him. The speaker says that the wind stirs and Mediterranean from his summer realms and cleaves the Atlantic into chops chasms, making the shapeless foliage of the ocean trembles, and asks for a third time and that hear him. The speaker says that if he were a dead leaf that the wind could bear, or a cloud it could carry, or a wave it could push, or even if he were as a boy, the comrade of the wind will wonder him. Okay, he wants to be a companion to to the dead west wind. And the trumpet of prophecy is, which means the sound of the west wind announces that a new beginning is going to start now. A new life is a new year is going to begin now. That is why he has concluded the poem with a line: "If winter comes and spring be can far behind." Okay, there is here is the themes and historical background of the poem. Mm, Okay, the theme of the poem is he is that is Shelley is injured. Shelley is has assaulted with words by critics, and at the same time with um, some critical political issues he has handled on that time. That is the main reason for him to write this poem. Okay.